Hello, this is Mantra Raval, and we're going to be going over AP Stats quiz video. And so this is the answer to the question. The average sale price for a certain brand of motorcycles is approximately normally distributed with a mean of 14,000 and a standard deviation of 4,000. And so I drew a graph here for me with the empirical values. So question A says, Harley has saved $15,000. What proportion of the motorcycles can she afford? So to answer this question, I use normal CDF. The lower would be negative 1E99, which is like the lowest value. And then upper would be 15,000 because that's how much you saved, and we want to determine what proportion she can afford. Mean is 14,000 and standard deviation is 4,000 because mean and standard deviation were given. And this would give us a value of 0.598706. And that is really, really important because that is the value that we have, but it doesn't mean anything without an interpretation. So with an interpretation, Harley has saved enough to be able to afford to buy 59.87% of the motorcycles. Now we have a better understanding of how much she can afford. And also here I've drawn a little graph to help determine, for me, visualizing how much she can afford. And you can see that she can afford about 59.87%, which is quite a bit. Now moving on to question B. What is the 30th percentile for motorcycles of this type? And so for this, instead of using normal CDF, we're going to use inverse norm. Area, you'd put in 0.30 because that's the percentile of motorcycles. And tail, we'd put left. The only different thing about inverse norm is the area and the tail instead of the upper and lower. The mean and standard deviation stay the same, right? So now we have 11,902.3976, 39796, sorry. And this gives us the value of what the 30th percentile is. And that's great, but we need to learn the interpretation for that. So the interpretation for that would be 30th percentile is approximately 11,902, meaning that 70% of the values are greater than 11,902. Now with that, we can make a graph, and you can see here which is this is the 30th percentile for which helps us determine what that value is. And I've also labeled mean and standard deviation there. So now moving on to the final part of the question C. Show a motorcycle priced at $26,000. Would it be considered an outlier? Using the 1.5 times interquartile range rule. So now this is very important because this is combining a topic we learned from before, the IQR, and a topic we're learning right now, which is the inverse norm and distribution, all that stuff. So how do we find these values, right? So Q1, we do inverse norm with the area of 0.25, 14,000 and 4,000 being mean and standard deviation, and the tail for left. The left is for Q1. And so the value of Q1 would be 11,302.041. And for the inverse norm for Q3, we do area 2.5. Mean is 14,000. Area as, standard distribution is 4,000. And instead of doing left, we do right for Q3. Tail would be right. And so the value of Q3 is 16,697.959. And now we have to do IQR, which is remembering that it would be Q3 minus Q1. And so 16,697 minus 11,302 gives us the IQR of 5,395. Now we plug in to our formulas if we remember from the past, which would be Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. And so now we put that in. So this would be 16,697.959 times plus 1.5 times 5,395, giving us the value of 24,789.5. And you also want to, or I also did, Q1 minus 1.5 IQR equal to 11,302 minus 1.5, 5,395. This gives us a value of 3,209.5. Now, what does this mean? What do these values mean? Any value above 24,784 is considered an outlier. And any value below 3,209.5 is considered an outlier. So, using that, how can we answer this question? Now it says, show that a motorcycle priced at $26,000 would be considered an outlier. $26,000 is above the limit here, which is $24,789.5, determining the answer that yes, 26,000 is considered an outlier using the IQR rule. Thank you. This is Mantra Raval, AP Stats video, quiz video. Thank you.